And now, the survival show that once survived a very distracting fly in the studio. In this episode, we pick up where we left off in episode 248. I'll share 5 more lessons I've learned from 15 years in preparedness. Howdy and welcome to the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 249. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole. Safe and sound. By popular request, this is part 2. Let me know what you think of these in the comments section. But before we dive in, let's bring people who missed last week's episode up to speed. These are lessons I've learned from roughly 15 years in preparedness. By 15 years in preparedness, I mean daily thought and work on the topic. Last week, we went over why you can't reasonably become a human Swiss Army knife, why all answers from experts need context and nuance, how planning and preparing for Titawaki is a recipe for disaster and burnout, how you can't force your husband, wife, or life partner into prep, but you can probably lead them into it. Almost everything needs an ROI in the immediate future, especially in the beginning. Today is part 2, as I already said, and we'll do a part 3 with 5 more next. Any more than that, and I'll save them and we'll do them as summer shorts. Speaking of summer shorts, I2RH will go on summer break starting in June and will return for season 8 in September. Summer shorts will start January 4th, and I'll start making the announcement, as usual, in the next few episodes. If you're new here, the show goes on break during the summer for a few months while I recharge my prepper batteries and figure out what we're going to do in the next season, and maybe take a vacation with my wife or something like that and do, shooting and stuff and things. And then we come back, we start a new season, and we're back to regular. But during the summer, we do short episodes that are usually 5 to 10 minutes in length. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's dive in. Number 6, people are your greatest asset and danger in an event. Number 7, you're better off keeping it to yourself most of the time. Most preppers think all other preppers are probably loons, and they're right, but only 1% of the time. Nothing is as easy as old-timers make it out to be. Number 10, skill will almost always supersede gear. Number 6, people are your greatest asset and danger in an event. Good people with a good set of skills are a huge benefit to you. They also tend to be a lot of fun to hang out with. People with no skills, sense of responsibility, or principles are a liability. You see, people don't rise to an occasion. They sink to their worst day of training. If they have no training, well, their performance is going to be pretty bad. They're either going to be sheep standing there all doe-eyed and stupid, or they're going to be all panicky and trample you and everyone around them. These people are likely to get you hurt or dead when the super volcano blows, a coronal mass ejection throws us back to the Stone Age, or Disease X finally turns into the zombie apocalypse. Don't pretend you won't be a little giddy after the shock wears off, of course. So the answer is surround yourself with good, principled people who train. Don't kid yourself that you're going to be Hero Joe, one man against all odds, saving the neighborhood. Principled is an interesting distinction we should dive into a little bit. People who are religious often say they'll only ally themselves with other people of faith. What they're saying is, I want to team up with someone whose beliefs in what is right and wrong are the same as mine. Really, what they're saying is, I want to know what you believe and what I can expect, right? We all want to know what the people around us stand for, especially if we're going to be depending on them. I don't think you necessarily need religion to tell you that. There are some very good people of faith, and then there's some real dirtbags who claim to have faith. Now, I'm not going to get into religion here. Y'all know how I line up, and my Facebook status with religion would probably read, "It's complicated." So let's not go too deep down that rabbit hole. It's not the point, and we'll get off track. What we're really trying to get out here is principles are any code of ethics a person lives by. They should also know themselves well enough to know at what points those rules will get broken. We'll all break something under some condition. I don't care what it is. I have mine written out because I'm anal retentive and I like lists and I like spreadsheets. So here's a couple of mine. Number 4, don't kill or harm anything that you aren't going to eat and isn't trying to kill or harm you. Number 10, if something comes to kill or harm you or those in your charge, wake up early and kill it first. Number 10 seems like a condition for breaking number 4, and that's partly right. But really, under what conditions would I break number 4 when 10 didn't apply? How bad would things have to be? Jonathan, Jason, and myself once played How Long Do You Become a Cannibal? Jason was wearing people's skin after the lights went out for like 12 hours. It's one of the reasons we like Jason. Kidding aside, know your teammates and what they stand for regardless of faith. As an extra side note, when someone tells you they're a sociopath, they're not kidding. For some reason, sociopaths love to tell everyone around them they're a sociopath. So make a note of it. Number 7. The first rule of Fight Club is that you don't talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is that you don't talk about Fight Club. And the third rule of Fight Club is that you don't talk about Fight Club. Most of the time. By that I mean, keep it to yourself that you're a prepper. Unless it's somehow your everyday job, there's no reason to tell anyone. However, telling people about it usually causes the first of several problems. And that's this. I'll just come to your house when things go crazy. 10 words every prepper regularly hears. And the 10 words that make every prepper want to smack someone in the face with a frozen tuna fish. The whole fish, because they're really big. Instead, we tend to tell them how that's a bad idea, stressed with a range of expressed disdain. And now we're in a dumb argument with some knucklehead for no good reason with no good outcome, right? I've had this conversation several times. At no point has anyone ever been shook awake, gone off, become a prepper, and come back to say, I'm now prepared. If you need to come to my house, you can. I got my own stuff. Never happened. All that said, there is a time and a place. If you think someone might be a prepper, you can always ask, do you listen to In the Rabbit Hole? Or do you read Blog X? Or have you read 1 second after? Usually pretty good giveaways that somebody's a prepper. You don't have to ask if they're a prepper. If they've never heard of it, move on. It's not a super big community. So chances are, if they're into preparedness, they've heard of it. And you've both quietly outed yourselves. And now you've met a new friend. Someone you can talk to about how much you hate those 10 words. I'll tell you what. Some of the best people I've ever met in my life come from this community. And that brings us to the next point. Number 8. Most preppers think all other preppers are probably loons. And you're right, but only 1% of the time. The other 99% of the time, they're your brand of wacky. When we have the local ITRH Roving Horde Armada meetups, you can always tell the new person before they sit down. They're looking around the restaurant and they look both concerned and anxious. Finally, they find us, they sit down, say hello, and within about 30 minutes, they comment on how normal everyone is and how they thought it'd be a bunch of loons. And they're right. They are sitting with a bunch of loons. But damn it, they're our kind of loons. Everyone always thinks they're somehow the one lone normal prepper. Till they meet a group of other preppers. I can't speak for all groups, obviously, but listeners of this show tend to be just average folks. You know, Project Appleseed isn't a perfect analog, but it's a very close comparison. The first time I went to a shoot, I didn't know if the people were going to be hillbillies who all looked a little too related to each other, or if they were going to be a bunch of white supremacists, or what. I had myself all good and freaked out on the 2-hour car ride to that first shoot. I'm pretty sure that's why Jonathan didn't go with me the first time. When I got there, everyone was normal. Okay, not exactly, but they were my brand of wacky. The point here is this. Get out and meet some preppers in your area. You're not alone. And most of them are perfectly normal people who won't turn to cannibalism when the lights go out for only 12 hours. We'll be back after this quick break. Listener, do you get at least $3 a month worth of value out of ITRH? You should see what we do for the Roving Horde Armada members. Check it out today by visiting itrh.net. Members get access to episodes a day early, access to monthly virtual and in-person meetups in some areas, an invitation to the secret ITRH Armada Facebook group so you can chat about survival all day long with like-minded people, access to every episode ever produced by ITRH. That's right, all the way back to the beginning, including one that was never aired. And those are just a few things you get with your membership when you sign up and become part of the ITRH Roving Horde by going to itrh.net. Again, that's itrh.net. Number 9. Nothing is as easy as old-timers make it out to be. Most of the time. When someone does something for a long time, they become competent at it. Or they're more competent than someone who's never done it, at least. So to them, it seems very easy. And the famous words come out. All you gotta do is fill in the blank. And then you try it with less easy than was implied. People tend to oversimplify things they have experience with. Quick story. I was talking to a good friend the other night. A company he works for may be hiring my firm to do some work for them. So I have a preliminary set of questions that I kind of go through when we're looking at something like this. And I asked him to explain his sales process to me. He said, it's pretty straightforward. Then he told me the 6 steps in like under 5 minutes. Sounded easy. But I knew better. And I asked him to start over and walk me through the process in detail using the last sale he made as an example. 30 minutes later, those 6 steps had several decision trees and about 12 sub-steps each. To him, all the sub-steps and scenarios are no-brainers. It's all the stuff you have to do to make a sale in his industry. To him, it's the big picture 6 steps that change with industries and change depending on what he's doing. So that's what he'll tell you if you don't dig. Another quick story. This relates to number 2 from the previous episode about all answers needing nuance and context. This will also relate to a point in the next episode. The first year of the ITRH bunny farm was a mess. If we were trying to survive off production, we'd have ended up starving to death, or Jason would have been wearing my skin. We'd read all the books, we'd spoken to a few experts, and we thought we'd done all our homework. Like, we thought we had it figured out. We knew what we were doing, right? Turns out there were all kinds of little things that could completely throw off getting the rabbits to be productive. By productive, make little rabbits and keep them alive long enough for us to eat them. One example, we used nesting boxes that you set in the cage with the pregnant doe. All you got to do is put it in there with some hay right before she's going to give birth. Sounds simple. Nothing told us not to put the box in there too early. You see, does like to get in there, pull all the hay out, play around with it, and then there's none in there when the babies finally come. And then guess what happens? The babies froze to death or got trampled to death. Later, we got the boxes in at the right time. We finally learned their little tells that they were getting ready to give birth and everything else. But then we had kits getting out and freezing to death all over again. Turns out, kits will sometimes stay attached to mama's nipple and not let go when the doe is ready to jump out of the nesting box. Usually this is a problem with immature does. Another thing we learned. No one told us. When the kit finally lets go, it ended up on the cold wire and froze to death because it, guess what, can't get back into the nesting box. Frozen kits was a big problem for us, as you're starting to guess. So we ended up getting rid of those nesting boxes and built the nesting boxes into the bottom of the cages. This is sometimes known as subterranean nesting boxes. Now the kits could crawl back in, or the doe would push them back in, and we stopped having a problem with kits being on the wire and freezing to death. That whole first season was a learning process through experience. And there was a ton of things the experts glossed over that we only understood through experience. The point here is this: you can't read a book or watch something on YouTube or attend a lecture and think you've got a skill down. You've got some knowledge, but you don't have the skill. Even more important is this: you can't just buy the book and think you'll read it when you need the skill. Skills are acquired through experience. Through experience comes competence. And then suddenly making rabbits is easy, and you have too frickin' many of them. Number 10, skill almost always supersedes gear. Look, gear is great. I love gear. I have a gear addiction. I'd say I have a gear problem, but I don't want a cure. See, you get to go on a hunt. You read all the reviews. You ask other people their thoughts. You read more reviews. You read some articles. You watch some YouTube videos. Finally, you pull the trigger and order the new toy. Then the anticipation. It's on its way. A few days or weeks later, package arrives. You grab the package and you greedily tear into it like a little kid on Christmas morning or Hanukkah night if you swing that way. You play with it a little, maybe a lot. Then it goes on a shelf or into a bag. There's the next package to play with after all. Gear is fine, don't get me wrong, but gear without skill is useless. And at a certain level of skill, you can often make do without gear. Or you know enough and have enough skill to make the gear in a pinch. Not always, obviously. There are some things you just can't do without gear. The point is this: buy the gear you need, learn to use it, then move on to the next thing. A pile of prepper shit you don't know how to use is a waste of money and of no real use to you in an emergency. As I said earlier, comment on this episode. Let me know your thoughts. What are your survival lessons? What have you learned that you wish somebody would have told you earlier? Comment on this episode. I'm curious. Show notes from this episode and other resources can be found by going to intherabbithole.com/E249. Support the show and get I2H Roving Horde Armada members only benefits. Go to I2H.net to become part of the Roving Horde Armada. Twice a month, members get on private virtual hangs. These are a chance to hang out with me and other like-minded everyday preppers to discuss whatever's on your mind. The things you just can't chat about with anybody else. I assure you, we're your brand of wacky. You also get access to every episode of I2H ever made. The on-demand access bug-out bag class, special prepper spreadsheets, and an invitation to the secret Armada Facebook group. That's just to name a few things you get when you go to I2H.net to become part of the Roving Horde Armada. Again, that's I2H.net to find out about exclusive members-only benefits. With that, we wrap up episode number 249 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.